and I am Chair of the Board of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa. We will begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. We know that an acknowledgement does not undo the atrocities of the past, yet it is our intention to honor the first peoples of this land as we move forward with humility, committed to reconciliation, healing, and justice. Before we proceed, I would like to share an important event update. Yesterday, Imam Tahiri and other representatives from the Global Imams Council had a press conference on Parliament Hill to announce that they will be opening a Western headquarters in Toronto. As a result of this significant announcement, Imam Tahiri's schedule shifted at the last minute, and he is unable to join us this evening. While we are all disappointed that he cannot be here, we are excited about the opportunity to begin a Canadian relationship with the Global Imams Council. We look forward to working together towards peace between people of all faiths, and we are grateful for their strong support of both the Canadian Jewish community and Israel. So I am now formally welcoming you to Voices for Change, an evening with our allies, hosted by the Jewish Federation of Ottawa and the Embassy of Israel. Thanks to all of you for joining us this evening for what I know will be a very meaningful discussion. In a world of increasing conflict and divisiveness, it is critical that we come together to listen to one another, to see each other not as other, but as partners with a shared purpose, striving to build bridges and working towards a peaceful future for all of humanity. With this in mind, I am honored to introduce Mr. Loay Alshareef, an exceptional leader who is a strong voice advocating for interfaith relations and peace. Mr. Alshareef, who shared with me that he wants to be referred to as Loay, so Loay uses his influential online presence to inspire coexistence and promote enduring peace between Jews and Muslims. Loay is a linguist and educator based in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. He has a profound passion for modern and ancient Semitic languages, including Arabic, Hebrew, and Syriac. Loay was born and raised in Saudi Arabia with a religious Muslim background. He was initially exposed to negative views about Jews and Israel. His perspective began to drift during his studies in France, where he lived with a Jewish host family. This experience challenged and ultimately transformed his beliefs, inspiring him to actively speak out against anti-Semitic disinformation and to support initiatives, including the Abraham Accords. Since 2012, Loay has created and produced educational content on YouTube, focusing on language, history, and cultural understanding. Leveraging his deep knowledge of Judeo-Arabic heritage, he works to encourage better relations between Arabs and Jews, contributing to a future of mutual respect and cooperation. He also holds a master's degree in software engineering from Penn State University. Loay will now be joined by David Sachs, Federation's Community Relations and Anti-Semitism Specialist, for a fireside chat. After their discussion, there will be an opportunity for questions from the audience. Please join me in welcoming Loay and David Sachs to the stage.
being here.
Thank you so much. It's really cold.
Yeah.
We're not used to that. I love snow, but it's like too cold.
We wanted you to feel at home.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and I heard that tomorrow it's hitting -10.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good luck.
Good luck. I thought my North Face jacket was the best. It's not.
So we're very happy to have you here.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming despite this.
Before we get into your Canadian visit, I understand that you recently had a visit to Israel, and we would all love to hear about that.
That's my first visit to Israel. My first visit, even though some people would never believe that. It's like, this is your first visit to Israel? Yeah, that was my first visit. It was like 3 weeks ago, and it was so special because I had my birthday in Israel for the first time. It was like exceptional. But let me tell you some of the highlights of the visit. As soon as I arrived in Israel, as soon as I arrived in Tel Aviv, I went to a very nice restaurant called Ha'achim. It's oh my God, it has the best hummus in town. 10 minutes after ordering, I heard the silence. Immediately, welcome to Israel, right? It's like, welcome to Israel. And it was, I went to the safe room with a friend of mine from Misrad al-Quds, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I told her, she was so worried that I would panic. I told her, listen, I came to Israel psychologically prepared, so chill. 10 minutes later, it just ended, and you know, I noticed that. I noticed that when people went to the safe room, and how the Israelis came back after that 10 minutes later, they are the people who will not leave this land. You know, the perseverance and the resilience that I saw, it's not from people who are willing to leave or would be intimidated, no. So it was something that would be very important to highlight. I also went to the north, to Haifa. I went to the south. I visited the kibbutz that were attacked by Hamas on October 7. I went to the Supernova Music Festival. I went to Jerusalem. But the real highlight of my visit, I would say, it was the city of David. It was the first time to see what you've always studied and learned in the Bible, see it come to life. That was magnificent. And I always say to my Israeli friends and to my Jewish friends and to my fellow Muslim friends that Israel's strongest weapon that it doesn't use much is history and archaeology. And this is why I always say in my mission to promote peace and interfaith between Muslims and Jews, I always defend strenuously not an Israeli government, but Israel's legitimacy. Because Israel's legitimacy is undisputed and should never be challenged. It was a great visit, really. And I'm looking forward to go again in Pesach, inshallah. Pesach time.
So you're obviously well known for your views on building bridges with Jewish communities, peace between Muslims and Jews. How was your message received by Arab Israelis?
So I would say 50-50. Some people welcome this kind of messaging, some people don't. But that's okay. I've been in their shoes, I know exactly their excuses, I know exactly their pleas, I know exactly what they want to say. But I see people change, and that's the most important part, that people change when you challenge them. When I speak to Arab audience, or Muslim audience about my views of Israel or the Abraham Accords or how peace should be the way, I don't really want to change them immediately. But I just want to throw the seed, let it go to the back of their head. They sleep on it, and then maybe they will wake up with different ideas 2 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, a year later. That's the most important thing. As someone who's changed his views based on knowledge, facts, and the truth, I know exactly that this change can take a while, but you just have to throw the seed.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Karen mentioned in the introduction about your stay with a Jewish family in Paris and how that changed your point of view. Can you talk a little bit about what was the environment of your upbringing with regards to the ideas of Jews and the non-Muslim world, and how that changed in Paris?
So it was not actually my family. My family is so liberal, still very liberal, but education, school system, it was so anti-Jewish, so anti-Israel. So you grow up with an idea that Jews are the bad people. Jews have fans. Jews are conspiring against Muslims. One of my favorite books, I have to say this, I'm really sorry to say this, but it's a fact. One of my favorite books when I was a child is called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. You see now? And for a long time I thought it's a real book. Now you find out later that it started in Russia and it was hoax, but so the protocols were so famous in the Arab world, and there is a very famous Egyptian TV show called Night Without a Horse. It's based on the protocols. It was very well directed. It was stunning. So you grow up with these ideas. But after living with a Jewish family in Paris, things changed I was challenged by the family. When we were having some discussions, I was challenged by ideas that were so new to me. And these challenges made me think more and more. And I decided to take the extra step by saying that, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. I need to learn more. And when you are courageous enough to step up to your questions and ask more questions and learn from the source, not from the adversaries of the Jews, you'll find new facts and truth, and you'd be willing to change. So that was in Paris in a nutshell. It was a very nice experience, honestly. It was a very, how to say this, educational, and I learned a lot about Jews and Judaism and Israel. I do remember when I went back to Saudi and I talked to my mother about the experience that I had with a Jewish family. My mom told me, Loay, you are under a sudden fascination that will go away in 2 months. 14 years and counting. Yeah.
So you go to Paris, your mind is opened a little bit to tolerance and the different ideas of the Jewish people. And where did you go from there, and how did you become involved in activism?
That's a very good question. So when I went back to Saudi Arabia, a year later I went to study masters in the US, in Pennsylvania, and I focused on teaching my fellow Saudi students English language. And then I focused more on historical projects, because Saudi Arabia, honestly, is not just a country that is oily, rich, and has no history. Saudi Arabia is a very rich country when it comes to history. Arab civilizations that prospered in Saudi Arabia are many. The Nabateans, the Nahyanis, the ancient Arabs had kingdoms before Islam. And unfortunately, not many people know that. Now, some people know about Al-Ula or some areas in Saudi. So I started to do some projects related to history, to tell people more about the history of Saudi Arabia. What do we have? That Saudi Arabia is called Kingdom of Civilizations. So I started to do some history projects, educational projects, mainly on YouTube, and then I went to the Saudi TV channels, did some projects. I did not start my advocacy for interfaith or Israel. I did not bring Israel to the table yet. It was only in 2017 when I started doing so. And I faced the whirlwind, but no regrets, of course.
So tell us a little bit about that. How did your family and friends react, and how did the culture around you react to your activism?
when I started my activism about peace with Israel.
Yes.
So let me tell you how it started. 2017, I wrote a tweet. At that time, it was called Twitter. I wrote a tweet, and that tweet went viral in the Arab world. And let me tell you why. I do remember the tweet. It was when President Trump at that time was talking about moving the embassy to Jerusalem. So I wrote a tweet, an innocent tweet. It said historical fact. Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. It was the second capital of Israel when King David decided to move the political capital from Hebron to Jerusalem after he dealt with the Jebusites. Hebron was the capital chosen by Saul, but David decided to change it to Jerusalem. So it was King David who proclaimed Jerusalem as the capital of the ancient kingdom of Israel, not Donald J. Trump. Simple tweet. I do remember I wrote it at noon, went to sleep, let me just take a siesta. And I woke up, Imale. Wow. Whirlwind. Al Jazeera took it. Al Jazeera translated it. A Zionist Arab is finally surfacing. Look at what he's saying. Jerusalem, how un-Islamic this is. And by the way, this is so Islamic to say that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Those Muslims who honor, revere the prophets, kings, and judges of Israel are disconnected from what these people said, what these people, where these people lived, what was their aspirations. So, unfortunately, Muslims say, we believe in David. We believe in Yunus, who's Yonah. We believe in Eliyahu or Elias. But don't get me into details. Because we believe in them, but don't get me into detail. Don't tell me that David was the king of Israel. That by itself is very provocative. Yeah, we believe in Jesus, but don't tell me he was Jewish. But he was Jewish. No, he was not. He was a Palestinian. Well, I tell my Muslim friends, if Jesus was Palestinian in the Gospels, he went in winter in the Gospel of Matthew to celebrate Hanukkah, which is the festival of dedication. What a progressive Palestinian he was. So I'm just saying this is how I challenge my fellow Muslims by fact. So when I wrote this tweet, it went viral, and I knew it, that there is no way back. Khalas, you have to confront people with why you said it. It was not someone who wrote this tweet. Who wrote this tweet for you? No, it was not someone who wrote the tweet for me. It's a conviction, it's a fact, and it was 3 years before the Abraham Accords. And there was a price to pay, but zero regrets. And this is how it's all started, 2017.
So we'll get to the Abraham Accords in a second, but I just wanted to follow up on that. Your tweet comes out, it goes viral.
Al Jazeera took it.
So-
Al Jazeera made a 5-minute report.
Wow, on a
On
tweet.
who Loay Alshareef is and how he changed. He started with teaching people English, and then he was hiding his Zionist ideology all the way. You see, so I said, wow, nice, okay. That's not true, but okay. It's like, it's showing you that you're part of this, what is it called? 8,200 unit, the unit 8,200 in Israel, that is like Hasbara thing. I say, well, okay, nice. People think that Mossad is paying me, and I need to have my checks from Mossad. I need to reclaim these checks.
We're all waiting.
Yeah.
Now, when you came out there and there was a big reaction, did you find any friendly voices in the Arab world who agreed with you and reached out, or got the bravery to speak up themselves?
Honestly, in 2017, I was all alone.
Okay.
2017 was, I do remember I was all alone, and it was great intimidation. But then I started to to see voices coming out 2018, 2019. Of course, when the Abraham Accords happened,
Right.
things were different. But I do remember I was all alone and I was like having calls from people that, oh, speaking of the contract that we're having, you know, we don't want to put your face because like people would call us and say, how could you deal with this Zionist? It was a tweet, a single tweet, and it was a historical fact tweet. But I'm so happy that this tweet encouraged more people to speak up and to say facts that are out there, but they are afraid to say it because they would be intimidated. But it was a battle that it was an unfair battle, like a one voice standing in front of hundreds and thousands of people who don't want to listen.
Now we're 4 years into the Abraham Accords, and you live in an Abraham Accord country. Have you seen a change in the attitudes on the streets from people towards the Jewish community, towards the West, towards Israel in general, since the Abraham Accords?
First of all, let me say that the Jewish community in Abu Dhabi is in the UAE in general, Dubai and Abu Dhabi is, it's an amazing Jewish community, thriving, despite of the incident that took place 3 weeks ago to our dear friend Rabbi Tzvi Kogan. May his memory be a blessing. He was a good friend, and but those who did it wanted to disrupt this relation. But I have great bad news for them. They will fail. They will fail, and we will prevail, and the Abraham Accords will be made great again, inshallah. I have to say one thing. One party that made the Abraham Accords possible, which is the United States, was not very strong in the past. We struggled in the past 4 years with the American administration. I'm saying we as Arab peace activists who believed in the Abraham Accords, who saw the benefits of the Abraham Accords, a people-to-people relation, not a security agreement between the UAE and Israel, but people to people. When I see my friends from Saudi coming to Dubai, calling me, oh, I'm having a Shabbat dinner this Friday with a Jewish family in Dubai. I'm going to visit my friends from Israel in Abu Dhabi. Oh, I'm going to Expo and I'm going to the Israeli Pavilion. This is what the Abraham Accords succeeded in doing, but the Americans were not very supportive. The Americans, I'm sorry, not the American people, the American administration. And now, we are dancing jumping jacks because the new administration is back. And everyone is saying that when the Americans were saying, oh, you know what? Abraham Accords is Trump administration. Okay, thank you so much, you're out. Now Trump is back, okay. So you can just whine about it. But the Abraham Accords succeeded because it was based on people to people. The foundation of the Abraham Accords was meant to be Muslims to Jews, Arabs and Israelis coming together. It was born out of peace. It was not born out of war, like Camp David or other agreements. And I'm very optimistic that I'm very optimistic about the future of the Abraham Accords, despite all the challenges. But the way I see it is that the situation in the UAE is stable, the Jewish community is thriving, and we are hands in hands together, publicly saying it out loud. We will prevail, and the terrorists and those who are against peace will fail.
I'm very sorry for your loss of your friend, and I'm sure many of us are wondering how the people of UAE reacted to that episode.
High officials from the UAE visited Israel immediately to pay their condolences to the family of Tzvi Kogan, and they reaffirmed the message that this will not change. This will make us more determined in growing this kind of relation. And of course, it's a crime that was not committed by people from the UAE or people who are even living in the UAE. It was committed by 3 perpetrators that were captured immediately, of course. And soon you will hear the public statement about their fate. And thank God the capital punishment is valid in the UAE. And these people deserve the death penalty. And I want to say one thing, that it will not affect the growth of the Jewish community. And everyone was reading the news appalled. Like, how could this happen? And but you know, if you have the best security in the world, you cannot prevent a crime 100%. But you'll learn from the mistakes, or you'll learn from what happened, and make sure that they are not repeated. And I can tell you for sure that this will not be repeated, inshallah.
Okay, thank you. Of course, with the Abraham Accords, the next big thing that everybody is hoping for is an agreement with Saudi Arabia. And in the past year, we've seen Saudi Arabia shift in their attitude towards Israel, especially in the last few months, with much stronger statements against Israel. What's your view on the future of that relationship, and if the Abraham Accords will be able to expand in the near future to Saudi Arabia?
I do believe that the leader of Saudi Arabia, or the one in charge, the Crown Prince, is a very bright leader who really changed Saudi Arabia to the better. And I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic that Saudi Arabia will soon either join the Abraham Accords, or will have its own agreement, separate agreement, peace agreement with Israel. How to say this? You know, I have to be carefully. I have to be so careful when I say this publicly. But public statements, when you know why they are stated like this, you would really understand the real situation. I do understand that, you know, for 70 plus years, the narrative was Israel is the enemy, Israel is occupying Arab lands. To counter narrative that, or to have the counter narrative and to change this narrative quickly, that would require some concessions. But I'm just saying that let's focus on things going forward, not the statements. The statements you can condemn, you can do this, you can do that, but things on the ground are different. And I'm saying that, yes, everyone believes that the Palestinians have the right to live in dignity, that there has to be a solution to the Palestinian cause. But Saudi Arabia, in its statements, when it talked about the Palestinian state, it made it clear that a pathway to it's not just like you have to have a Palestinian state right now. And also, I do have personal opinions about the Palestinian state, that it will never see light. And this is my personal opinion. And when people ask me why, I say, well, this is the ideal solution, to have a Palestinian state. But that ideal solution was lost in 2000. The last genuine opportunity to having a Palestinian state was in Barak-Clinton agreement in the year 2000. It was even better than the one in 2008 by Olmert, because by 2008, the Israelis already withdrew from Gaza unilaterally in the summer of 2005. So you've already taken away the pleasure of having this kind of victory announced that Israel withdrew from Gaza. But in 2000, it was possible. In 2000, the Palestinians were offered a great, tremendous offer that they rejected and turned down. And this is why I personally, I'm not representing anyone in saying this, I personally believe it's not going to happen. What is the solution? I don't know. There could be a confederation or some sort of a solution. But a state, especially after October 7th, even the most leftist Israelis that I've met in Israel, who were coming at me and saying, you are a Zionist more than many Zionists. Now they come to me and say, I don't think we should have a Palestinian state. But doesn't mean that the Palestinians don't have the right to live in dignity and to have their aspirations met. I do believe that the Palestinians have the right to live in dignity on their own land as well, but a state is far-fetched. That's my personal opinion.
You spoke about 2017 being a voice that was alone. How do you feel that has changed? Do you see signs of hope with a growing peace movement or growing peace initiatives, and how has that changed since October 7th?
So you're talking about Canada. I was yesterday with the Global Imams Council. There are growing voices, and I would like to extend my gratitude to Secure Canada, because honestly they are supporting Muslim voices who are the counter-narrative of the radicals and fundamentalists who don't believe in peace with Israel. There are growing Muslim and Arab voices that believe in peace with Israel, that believe in the regional integration, that believe in rehabilitation Muslim-Jewish relations. And yes, we are growing in number. We are not the majority for the time being. We are not, but we are getting there. And it will keep growing better and better, inshallah, in the next 4 years. Very optimistic that the Abraham Accords, I have this trademark, make the Abraham Accords great again. And inshallah, it will be made great again, inshallah. Don't take this trademark, please, and print it on products yet, okay? So.
I'm very interested in how you find this message of peace received, whether it's differently or the same between the Arab communities in the Middle East, such as in UAE or Saudi Arabia, versus the diaspora Arab communities in the West, and which you think is moving more quickly to acceptance of the Jewish people and of Israel?
Well, you'll be shocked, but the communities in the Middle East are more receptive to this message than the Arab communities in the West. I'll tell you why. And I always love to be blunt and honest in my opinions. In the West, because you people are too kind, not naive, I didn't say naive, too kind, you are giving liberal freedoms to everyone without understanding the consequences. So, liberal freedoms are given to people who don't really appreciate it, will turn it into a ladder that they would use to climb, and as soon as they reach what they want, they will throw the ladder away. And guess what? Those who defended those who were carrying the ladder will pay the price first. So when I see Gen Zs, white Canadians, white Americans, saying that Hamas are freedom fighters, and they don't speak Arabic, they don't know Islam well, they haven't read the charter of Hamas, I say, wallah, lots of education needs to be happening. And by the way, I want to say one thing about even the Muslim and Arab diaspora communities. Not many of them, by the way, are very well educated about Islam itself. Because, I'll tell you a fun fact. The Quran, when the Quran was talking about the Promised Land, or the Holy Land, it was so strict that this land was given to the children of Israel. Now the counter-narrative to that by those communities would be, oh, that was the ancient Israelites. The Jews now are Ashkenazi from Poland, yeah. It's like even if you prove to them that they are not, they would change their mind. They would not. But I'm just telling you that the legitimacy of Israel can never be challenged by true religious Muslims. But of course, ignorance is so high, and also it's becoming a different religion. The Palestinian cause is becoming like a religion itself. So many facts are changed. Suddenly you have all these things about that Jews do not belong to Israel, or Jews are not indigenous to the region, that Jesus was even a Palestinian, that his disciples were Palestinian. But not only that doesn't make sense, but that's not true. You know, even if you go deep in knowing where the word Palestine originated from, it's a shock to so many people who defend this cause. So I explained to my Muslim and Arab friends that the word Palestine, it was used by a Roman emperor called Hadrian when he wanted to provoke the Jews after kicking them out of their homeland, Judea. Hadrian was thinking, who are the adversaries of Jews? The Philistines. And he decided to rename not only the land, but also some significant cities to this Jewish group that made a rebellion against him. So, Judea was changed to Palestina. Shechem was changed to Neapolis. Jerusalem was changed to Ilia Capitolina. This is History 101. It's not a Zionist propaganda, but this is history. So you need to educate people more and more about the history of this land and tell them facts and truth that would change their minds the right way, not just because this is the Israeli propaganda. No, this is the right narrative that has to be populated.
Thank you. I have one last question, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience that I know are going to have many questions. And I want to go from history to the present. And
I love history. History makes you understand how things really shifted, and why do we have this kind of discussion. And speaking of history, I'm sorry, when I was walking in Carmel market in Israel, I was personally provoked by seeing hats, because I love hats, by seeing hats saying Israel since 1948. I said, this is not true. It's Israel since 1000 BCE. You should never forget that. Israel is not 76 years old. Israel is 3,000 years old, 76 years young. This should be an ironclad narrative said by Muslims, Jews, and Christians.
thank you. You spoke of the growing initiatives in the Muslim world and the Global Imams Council and other allies that you're finding now. And we have in this audience a room full of people who are interested in peace and are interested in building bridges with those allies. And I wonder if you have any words of advice on what you see as the best path for people in this room, for individuals to build those bridges and find the peacemaking partners.
Reach out. Let's amplify our voices together. Together we stand, and together we thrive, and we have to do this jointly. We cannot do it there's an Arabic saying that says one hand doesn't clap. So you need two hands. And it's very important by the way, even to so many pro-Israeli voices that I know, that I admire and I love, when they come out and say, well, we should avoid, you should never trust Muslims, all Muslims are radical, all Muslims are this. And I say to those voices, if you say this, you are isolating 1.8 billion people on the planet Earth. Would it be better to save 1.8 billion people from being radicalized or from having wrong ideas? Would that be better, or just isolating them? I'd say 1.8 billion people. We are 1.8 billion. So I would look at my fellow Muslims and say, let's have the correct way of thinking, and let's have a more peaceful mindset rather than just isolating Muslim voices. When there's a great book in the Bible. It's the book of Jonah. I love this book so much because I believe that it is the only book in the Tanakh that shows that the God of Israel wants salvation even to those who are not Israelites. And when Jonah was so upset, how could you send me to the enemies of Israel, to Assyria? and I know that you are the most merciful, the most compassionate, that you would forgive them. God told him, and then when God grew a tree, and then Jonah was so happy, and then God destroyed it, and Jonah was saying, so you are taking away the thing that made me happy. God told him, you did not put an effort in this tree. And I cared about 120,000 souls from Nineveh to be survived, who don't know their right from their left. So when I look at this and say, God cared about 120,000 souls, and I say to my pro-Israeli voices who say, let's just ignore Muslims, say there are 1.8 billion souls that need to be saved from radicalization. Ask someone who is recovered, who will tell you the truth.
Very beautiful message. Thank you. So for anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question, my friend Jody here has a microphone. We want to ask concise questions, not tell stories, and not rambling. I would love to hear your rambles afterwards, but this is not the time. So please, we'll ask some questions that our guest can speak to.
Hi, my name is Dina. I have a question for you. As an Israel advocate on campus, how can I plant the seed, so to speak, on my peers?
Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you one thing, honestly. There's one thing I didn't like my visit to Israel last time. My first visit, that I saw many Israelis, and don't take this in a bad way, take it positively. Many Israelis, or some Israelis, not many, some Israelis are not really connected to the roots, to Israel, to the Hatarbut, you say, to the tradition, to the history. And I'm not saying that they have to be all Hasidis, but of course, but they have to understand that. I had some talks with my friends. Oh, but you're so obsessed with biblical history and archaeology and this and that. I said, well, if you are not, then why Israel? Why not Uganda or Argentina? Why Israel? Why Israel? Because you are connected. You have to remember that you are. Now, an Arab Zionist is telling you this. Can you imagine? You have to remember that you're so connected to this land. So, first of all, you have to be proud of your heritage. You should never be ashamed of it. And you have to say to people that, as a Jew, as an indigenous person from this region, here is my cause. And this is what I believe in. And you have to bring religion to. I know that some people think it's very sensitive, but God made Abraham go to Arabia for a reason. Made Ishmael go to Arabia for a reason. And by the way, Ishmael and Isaac, in their adult lifehood, did not communicate. Ishmael and Isaac, during their adult life, never communicated. Ishmael went to Arabia, Isaac lived in the land of Israel in this area of Levant, and only when Abraham died, Isaac wrote to Ishmael that our father died, let's bury him. And then Ishmael came all the way to bury Abraham and then returned. He did not settle in the land of Israel or in the land of Canaan. For a reason. It's not his land. And saying this is not racism. So you have to be proud of your heritage, and you speak up with knowledge and telling people that I'm not going to be sorry for what I am. And I believe that this tiny land that I'm asking for is my historical ancestral homeland, and here is my cause. Start with this. Don't just be very apologetic for being Israeli. I saw that. By the way, even those Israelis, I love them so much. They are amazing people, amazing souls. But we have our disagreement. We have our own, disagreements that they think that this is not the right way to tackle it. But it is the right way to tackle it.
Thank you. We have.
Hi, thank you very much for being here. I'm one of your followers on Instagram and so on.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Do you like the posts?
I really like your posts.
Do you share them?
Of course.
Okay,
Of course. So I'm very glad that you're respecting things and how you try to get people together. One of the things that you mentioned is about knowing history and be able to change the narrative to be accurate, to know what is the right stand, what is the real history, and and make people understand that that's the basis of making decisions or having certain thoughts. So my question to you is, I know we can count on organizations like the United Nations to give us the truth or to make allies and so on, or be truthful about the history, or other organization. But one of my questions is, why hasn't there been any organization or movement towards a commonly finding the truth, or commonly having a history taught? Both from on the Muslim side and Arab side and the Jewish side, I can't find any organization that will be willing to donate even or contribute, where commonly come up with some kind of common narrative of this is the history. Because you mentioned it very well. This is the real history, this is what happened. We can't change it. So I will appreciate your thoughts on that.
Yeah, maybe we don't have now, but we are having now. So the Global Imam Council is one of the organizations that exactly does what you're saying. It's a Muslim organization that focuses on interfaith, and when it comes to Israel, it says the right narrative that is truthful. There are many organizations to come. Now we are lone voices, but this is changing. And as I said, I'm very optimistic about what's going to happen in the next 4 years, inshallah. Inshallah. Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you very much. This is very impactful for me. I wanted to ask you, I heard recently somebody saying that one reason why Palestinians will never succeed is because they only talk about the Palestinian state and not the nation of Palestine. So it talks about government and rule and not culture and life. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
My thought of why a Palestinian state was never created, because the leadership of the Palestinians were so much focusing on destroying Israel rather than building a state. That is the reason. So when you have a Palestinian leadership that is willing to say, we are willing to live side by side with our Israeli neighbors, we are dreaming of I'm just dreaming, We are dreaming of a shared future for our children to thrive, prosper, grow together. We are thinking of future projects that we're going to do together with our Israel. I'm telling you, Israelis would invade Gaza and invest their billions if that was a Palestinian leadership that would say it out loud. But of course, where is that leadership? When people ask me, even when I meet some officials in the Gulf states and they say, you're being too harsh, I said, maybe I'm wrong. Show me a Palestinian leader who is willing to say what I'm just saying. Being direct and honest in condemning Hamas, in condemning those who are publicly stating that they want to ethnically cleanse Jews. Speaking of ethnically cleansing, I always quote Belmar on that, because he said it right. Ethnically cleansing is the act of deliberate annihilation of a certain group of people. Israel can do that, but it doesn't. Hamas wants to do that, but it can't.
So we're just about running out of time, and we're just going to have time for 2 more questions. So we have one here at the back.
Hi. I too like and follow and share your content on Instagram.
Comment? No?
I will, yes. But I also want to say that you're doing really important and meaningful work, and I thank you and appreciate you. We have a double-barreled question. What advice would you offer to educators in elementary and secondary schools to address the problem of increasing anti-Semitism in schools?
Okay. That's one question only?
And the second question is, recently we heard a book, I'm Palestinian, is allowed to be distributed into the school board's library. It's historically incorrect, and wondering how would you counter that?
I need to know more about this book. I honestly read all the books of UNRWA and they are disastrous, and I hope that Canada stops funding UNRWA and also some other places. The white Canadians and the Gen Zs who are defending UNRWA, I bet you they don't speak Arabic. They don't have anything to do with our region. And yeah, I can speak about these curricula, but I don't know about this specific curriculum.
The first question was about advice for educators who are in schools and are facing a great deal of anti-Semitism, both for themselves and for their students. And if you have any advice on how to deal with that today.
I would say that you have to collect the excuses of the anti-Semites and just have them like one by one debunked and refuted. This is what I do, by the way, on my social media. When I focus on, especially on those who say that Jews are not indigenous and to the land of Israel, or Jews have no connection to the land and stuff like that. I just collect that and I debunk it one by one. Anti-Semitism is a plague that has to be treated with education first and foremost. So, in the Arab world, the most anti-Semitic sentiment is that Jews are not indigenous to the land of Israel. And I always say to those who say so, well, okay, where does the word Jew come from? So, understanding where the word Jew comes from destroys any argument about Jews are not being indigenous. And you might say, well, there are other anti-Semitic things we need to deal with. Oh, trust me, if you debunk this, you would solve 90% of the problem. Because people still disconnect the fact that Jews are called Jews because they come from Judea. Exactly. By the way, the Israelites were never called Jews before 586 BCE. Speaking of Yonah, when he was asked on the ship, what are you? Where you come from? You know what he said? Ivri Anochi. I'm Hebrew, just Hebrew. But when they were called Jews, when the Babylonians in exile inquired about their origin, where you guys are coming from, said, we come from Judea, we are the Jews. If they were brought from the portion of the land that was called Binyamin, all of you would be called Binyaminites. Exactly. And why was it called Judea? Because Joshua ben Nun, when he partitioned the land and named it after the 12 sons of Jacob. So his fourth son was Judah. So that portion of the land is called, this is why the Israelis are still calling it Yehuda B'Shomron, Judea and Samaria. This is very relevant to what you're saying because it talks about education. And this is a very important point to tackle more and more, that again and again, the legitimacy of Israel should never be questioned because it's factual. And of course, I would also suggest to those who are trying to combat anti-Semitism to bring all the points and excuses and debunk them one by one. But that's the most important one because in the Arab world we hear it all around. And I keep repeating this again and again because it's fact and it should never be questioned. Also, that Jesus was Palestinian because that's my favorite. I speak Aramaic, the language of Syriac, which is the language of Jesus. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but he was raised between Nazareth and Capernaum in Galilee. So, if you want to know what was his perspective, how he viewed things, you have to read the gospel. And if you read the gospels, trust me, Jesus is Zionist more than any Zionist in the current Israeli government. I promise you. Let me just give you one quote of this Zionist Jesus, peace be upon him, as we say in Islam. Peace be upon this great Jewish rabbi Zionist Jesus. You know, in the Gospels, he had an argument with a Samaritan lady. You know the Samaritans, the story how it started after 720 BCE when they returned from Assyria. So they decided to change the text, and because they couldn't go to Judea, they said that the holy mountain is the mountain of Gerizim. And why they chose Gerizim? Because when Joshua entered the land, he put 6 tribes on Mount Gerizim and 6 tribes on Mount Ebal, the blessings and the curses of Israel. So this Samaritan lady was having a discussion with Jesus in the gospel, and she said, how could you as a Jew believe that you are worshiping God on the right mountains? Our fathers worshiped God on this mountain, Mount Gerizim. Listen to the response of Jesus. He said, you worship God on a mountain that you do not know. We worship God on a mountain that we know because salvation comes from the Jews. What a progressive Palestinian Jesus was. I would say that he was, if the Palestinians are willing to say this, I would say that Jesus was Palestinian.
Okay, I think we're going to have to wrap it up from here, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Our guest is very anxious to go outside for a snowball fight. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Loay, thank you. I do not yet follow you on Instagram, but I promise I will go home and connect with you. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story, your wisdom, your insights. I know that we are all grateful for the tremendous work that you're doing, encouraging meaningful dialogue, meaningful connections between Jews and Muslims and multi-faith. I hope we can all carry your message forward. Your words are so inspirational, and hopefully together we move forward for a more peaceful and united future for all of humanity. Thank you.